welcome back to the Compliance Kitchen. This is Sylvia, and today we will look at sanctions, starting off with Cuba, and then we will take a look at China and Hong Kong. So first, Cuba. On July 22nd, the State Department issued a press release announcing sanctions on Minister of the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Cuba, Alvaro López Miera, and the Cuban Ministry of the Interior's Special National Brigade, or Boinas Negras, or Black Berets. The State Department tells us that starting on July 11, tens of thousands of Cubans throughout the island took to the streets to peacefully demand respect for their fundamental freedoms and a better future, and in response, the Cuban regime violently suppressed these protests, arresting hundreds of demonstrators. López Miera and the Special National Brigade have been involved in suppressing the protests, including through physical violence and intimidation. So accordingly, the Treasury Department added López Miera and also the Special National Brigade, or Brigada Especial Nacional del Ministerio del Interior, into the SDN list. If you guys want to take a look at the identifying information, I have a link to the OFAC site on compliancekitchen.com. As I'm sure you know, Cuba Sanctions program is the most comprehensive sanctions program that OFAC is administering, with a few exceptions of certain economic activity that directly benefits the Cuban people. OFAC maintains an economic embargo on Cuba, so there's basically no commercial activity except for very few allowed exceptions. This means that U.S. persons and also entities that are owned or controlled by U.S. persons cannot engage in transactions or provide services that may sustain the Cuban regime. Also, all Cuban nationals are blocked, so they're all considered blocked persons, and this is regardless of whether or not they are on the SDN list. So you want to think broadly when you're applying the Cuban sanctions in your commercial activities. The designations that we were discussing were made under EO 13818, which implements the Global Magnitsky Human Rights Accountability Act and targets perpetrators of serious human rights abuse and corruption around the world. Under the Global Magnitsky Sanctions, as I'm pretty sure you guys know, all property and interests in property of those who are designated that are in the U.S. or in the possession or control of a U.S. person are blocked, and all transactions by U.S. persons or within or transiting the U.S. that involve property or interests in property of those who are designated or otherwise blocked are also prohibited, unless, of course, you have a license from OFAC. On a practical level, these prohibitions include the making of any contribution or provision of funds, goods, or services by, to, or for the benefit of those who are designated, or the receipt of any contribution or provision of funds, goods, or services from those who are designated. So that's it for this one. Again, if you guys need exact information or want to take a look at the press release, I have links for you on compliancekitchen.com. And we can move over to the next topic, which is this has to do with Hong Kong and the recent business advisory that was issued by the U.S. State Department on Hong Kong, the situation in Hong Kong, and commercial risks for U.S. companies there. So on July 23rd, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the PRC issued a foreign ministry spokesperson's remarks on China's decision to impose sanctions on relevant U.S. individuals and entity. The remark notes that following the State Department's issuance of the Hong Kong Business Advisory, which we covered in a previous podcast episode, and also I have a post on compliancekitchen.com for you guys if you want to take a look. China decided to issue reciprocal sanctions on several U.S. officials and a not-for-profit organization. By way of background, China, of course, considers Hong Kong its special administrative region, and so they deem the affairs of Hong Kong to be an integral part of China's internal affairs. So the remark tells us that the U.S. has concocted the so-called Hong Kong Business Advisory to groundlessly smear Hong Kong's business environment and illegally imposed sanctions on several officials of the liaison office of the Central People's Government in the Hong Kong SAR, or Special Administrative Region. These acts violate international law and basic norms governing international relations and severely interfere in China's internal affairs. China firmly opposed and condemned the Hong Kong Business Advisory, and in response decided to take reciprocal countermeasures, imposing sanctions on 7 U.S. individuals and 1 entity. The individuals are largely public figures, such as former U.S. Secretary of Commerce Wilbur Ross, and I have the complete list of the people who were sanctioned by China under this action on compliancekitchen.com if you want to take a closer look.